Hi, I'm Will Jen. I am the certification manager here at REDBIRD, and thanks for joining me. I guess what we can do is just go ahead and jump head first and address the great big elephant that's in the room, which is the coronavirus, COVID-19, specifically some of the regulatory relief that's resulted from the coronavirus. Starting with the FAA, to help with easing some of the burdens caused by the coronavirus, the FAA created what's called Special FAR-118. The SFAR 118 has had two limited extensions since it was initially issued in April 2020. These extensions are also known as SFAR-118-1, and then more recently the SFAR-118-2 on September 30th, 2020. I'm just going to be covering just a couple of the items from the SFAR. However, if you would like to review the entirety of the regulatory reliefs that were available, I have provided the URL to it and some other COVID-related updates in a later slide. So let's go ahead and get started. Medicals. The SFAR provided an extension for medicals expiring during the pandemic. So for medicals that expire between March and September 2020, the validity was extended an additional 3 months. And for medicals expiring from October 2020 through January 21st, that validity period was extended just by 2 months. Notice that the SFAR 118-2 is a little bit more scaled back than the previous versions, and the validity period has only been extended 2 additional months. So for any continuing relief beyond that, they would have to extend that a third time. Next up is knowledge test. For knowledge tests that are expiring between, again, March 2020 and September 2020, these were also extended an additional 3 months under the special FAR. And then for those that were expiring between October and January 2021, 2 additional months were added. Again, notice that 118-2 is scaled back compared to the original special FAR 118 and 118-1. Moving on, we have pilot reviews. The extension period and relief are pretty consistent with that of the medicals and the knowledge test. 118-1 granted a 3-month extension for the reviews that were expiring between March and September, and 118-2 granted a 2-month extension for those due after September through January 2021. And one of the final regulatory relief items that I've added is for instrument currency. And what the FAA did here was just simply extend the look-back period from the normal 6 months to a 9-month period. This applies to instrument currency expiring between, again, March 2020 through September 2020. And unlike the previous regulatory reliefs that received additional extensions from 118-2, no additional relief was provided or granted for instrument currency that are expiring beyond October 2020. So whether there's going to be a third extension or not, that's most likely going to be determined sometime in early 2021. Let's take a quick look at some of the relief that Transport Canada has provided for the coronavirus. NCR-021-2020, originally released in March 2020 by the Civil Aviation Director of Transport Canada, provided some regulatory exemptions as a form of COVID relief. Among these were extending the validity period for written exams to January 31st, 2021 for applicants who have completed their written exams between March 11th, 2018 through March 11th, 2020. And for instrument rating and instrument proficiency checks, these validities were extended for an additional 90 consecutive days from the 24-month validity period as originally permitted under 401-053. And the exemption period is only good until November 13th, 2020. Another item among the regulatory exemptions is the temporary endorsements or licenses will no longer expire after 90 days from the issuance. Instead, the temporary endorsements or these licenses will only expire upon the receipt of a new permit or license. However, this exemption is only in effect until December 31st, 2020. Certain pilots with Category 1, 2, or 3 medicals that are expiring between March 17th, 2020 and March 31st, 2021 are now able to renew their medicals either by attesting to their fitness or simply via telemedicine. There are some eligibility restrictions and limitations that can exclude a pilot from these types of reliefs. For those that are excluded, they must still undergo your standard medical examination through a civil aviation medical examiner. Some of the limitations that you'll find that would make one ineligible are having a restricted license or permit, or 12-month private pilot PPL privileges, or if you're a civil aviation medical examiner and your medical is due for renewal. For a complete list of the restrictions and limitations, you can look at NCR-062-2020. And the last Transport Canada regulatory exemption on my list is the extension to simulator certification for the simulator validity periods ending before October 31st, 2020. For the affected simulators, the validity period is extended for an additional 180 days. This extension is only valid for the flight simulators or training devices that are currently valid or did not expire before 2020, March 22nd, 2020. And as promised, here's a slide that includes some reference URLs and links to provide some additional updates for coronavirus COVID-related regulatory relief and updates. All right. Now on to the fun stuff. So since we have a lot of new REDBIRD owners, I thought it would be a good opportunity for us to go over how REDBIRD devices fit into the different levels of simulators and their associated regulatory requirements. For example, in Europe, the simulator certification process is detailed in EASA's CSFSTD A for aircraft or H for helicopters. REDBIRD simulators like our FMX, MCX series seeking certification under EASA guidelines will qualify at the FMPT2 level. Each device is certified as its own specific unit, and it's necessary for the operator to recertify each device each year. So this process is generally going to require a bit of work on the part of the simulator operator, and it does require custom qualification test guide, or QTG, software package for the certification tests. Another challenge is, even though most of the European countries follow the same guidelines listed in CSFSTDA, the process in which a device is actually certified can vary from country to country. And this is mostly because different authorities having slightly different interpretations of the same regulations. For our Canadian customers, the requirement for certification is listed in TP 9685. Currently, it's in revision 3. And again, for our REDBIRD FMX, MCX simulators seeking certification in Canada, the devices will qualify at the FSTD Level 2 level. Like the EASA certification, each simulator must be certified individually and an annual recertification is required. However, the volume of the tests that are required for the certification process is much less, and Transport Canada does provide a basic QTG template for reference. Finally, we have AC 61-136B issued by the FAA. This advisory circular details the approval requirements and process for the aviation training device, otherwise known as the ATDs, and is overseen by AFS 800 branch of the FAA. There are 2 sub-levels to an ATD, the basic ATD, which is a BATD, and an advanced ATD, the AATD. Unlike in EASA and Transport Canada certification processes, REDBIRD submits an official application and a qualification and approval guide, or otherwise known as a QAG, to AFS 800 for review and approval. Once approved by AFS 800, the entire model line is approved, so the operator do not have to approve their own or apply for certification of their specific units. These approvals are good for 5 years, and the process is generally a lot more convenient for the simulator operators, again, because they don't have to apply for recertification every year. Our desktops, such as our REDBIRD TD and TD2, are approved at the BATD level, the Basic Aviation Training Device level, while our larger sims like our FMX, MCX, MX2, VTO, and our AMS units are all approved at the AATD, or the Advanced Aviation Training Device levels. So how does the ATD approval process work? Well, so either as a result of a customer request or a new product development, we'll design and build a new device and begin testing. Testing and retesting is where we spend most of our time on these new devices that we develop. And once we're happy with the product, that's where my job comes in. I'll put together the qualification and approval guide, the QAG, which details the device and REDBIRD statements assuring compliance with the advisory circular previously stated, AC 61136B. Once the QAG is completed, I'll formally submit that QAG along with an application and a demonstration video to AFS 800. In some cases, AFS 800 may also request on-site evaluation of the device depending on whether or not they were able to get the information that they need from the video. Once the evaluation process is complete, including any requests for edits to the QAG by AFS 800, and if all goes well, the device is approved at the level requested, and a letter of authorization, the LOA, is provided for the device along with a signed and dated cover page to the QAG. So here I have a list of all of the current expiration dates for the letter of authorization for all of our FAA-approved REDBIRD devices. As you can see, our MCX, FMX, and SD devices do not expire until the end of January 2025. You should be on version 2.7i. And finally, here are just a couple of questions we receive almost daily from our customers about their REDBIRD devices. Do I have to do anything to maintain FAA approval of my REDBIRD? Nope, not at all. That's one of my responsibilities here at REDBIRD. I make sure all of the LOAs are renewed well before the 5-year expiration date ever approaches. The only thing you have to do is to make sure that the most recent copy or most recent version of your LOA is posted somewhere on or very nearby the sim. Another one of the questions that we get is, how do I know if I have the most recent LOA, and how can I get a copy if I don't? Well, the best way to check is to simply go to our support site, go to www.redbirdflight.com, and from our support link, search LOA. You're going to be able to find our most current LOAs for the REDBIRD TD, TD2, as well as the FMX, MCX line of simulators there on our support site. For AMS units, feel free to contact me directly, and I'll be more than happy to let you know and send you the most recent copy. Another question we get is, how do I enter my ATD time into the IACRA 8710 form? This one is generally easier to explain using visual references, so I've put together an article on our REDBIRD landing page just specifically for this. Just simply follow the URL in the presentation, but in short, your ATD experience is logged in a last tab that is used to record your flight experience. It's not logged in the time that's used for your practical tests. And then finally, can I use an ATD? Can I use my REDBIRD without an instructor? Absolutely. We 100% encourage everyone to continue to use their ATDs to help develop their skills and to stay sharp. Also, as a bonus, instrument-rated pilots can use their ATDs to maintain instrument currency from the comfort of their own office, from their hangar, from their garage, anywhere that they need, that they're able to. However, if you are using the device for training and want to apply that time towards your aeronautical experience, towards a rating or a license, you will have to have an instructor present to be able to sign off on that time as dual time received. Again, my name is Will. I am the REDBIRD Certification Manager. I hope you have learned something from my presentation and hope that you enjoy the rest of your migration.